Hey, sports fans, it's Athletic Chat 103. Can you believe it? Stuart Weir in the lovely blue shirt in another place in his house is in jolly old England. I am in jolly old Wisconsin in the Laren Hall, the global headquarters of RunBlogRun. But, Stuart's in the global headquarters of, everything because, he writes for us and he writes for our friends at Athletics Weekly. And hey, Ewan Crumley's been doing some fun interviews. I thought he's done a nice job. And he laughs at my jokes, so that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Maybe we can have.
Well, until you told me he'd laughed at your jokes, I was going to say he's a good man.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of scary, isn't it?
Mm.
Drinking water. I've had my caffeine for the day, Stuart.
I'm on the
So
coffee.
yeah, good.
Mm.
Do you do coffee all day or do you do tea
I
most of
do
the day?
coffee all day.
Really?
Mm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. It's just I thought, across the pond everybody did the whole tea thing and then occasionally did coffee.
No, I'm not a tea drinker. I'm just a coffee.
Okay, well, I respect you even more. Let's start out with, Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone, the world
Mm.
record holder of the 400 hurdles. She wasn't going to do the 400 hurdles, but she was going to do the 400, and now she's out of that. What's the feeling in your part of the world? Any thoughts about that?
I think, well, I go into this in two ways.
Okay.
A great sadness that one of the biggest talents in our sport is not going to be in the World Championship.
Yeah.
I mean, I was privileged to be in Oregon and to be in Tokyo and to see her run ridiculously fast times.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, other than those two events, I have only seen Sydney run twice because she ran. Well, I saw her in the Doha World Championship as well. And I think I saw her in the Rio Olympics, but didn't really know who she was at that stage. But she ran in the Diamond League in Zurich 2019, and she ran in Oslo 2019. I saw those two. And I saw her run in Paris and should have seen her run in Monaco
Yeah.
when she didn't. But you see, compare Femke Ball. I have probably seen her 20 times in
Oh
that
yeah.
period
Yeah. Oh,
because she runs every Diamond League. And I don't really understand why Sydney and her management have her run so little.
I don't either, and I wonder. I'm shocked that New Balance, the brand that is sponsoring her,
Mm.
is happy with this situation,
Mm.
but it's the way that she's been for years. It's also the way that she's been that you really don't get much access to her in terms of media. I know that Jeff Benjamin, one of our writers, tried
Mm.
to set something up, followed up with her team, and
Mhm.
was told this is at the end of last year that she really wasn't interested in talking to media. I will tell you that when I did a quick interview with her in the mix zone in New York for the Grand Prix, she was wonderful. I gave her 3 questions, 90 seconds, but then I watched her do social media stuff that was incredible. And there's a video that her husband Andre and her have done that they've hired people to do because
Mm.
everybody over here now has a film crew.
Mhm.
And there's been a big brouhaha about that.
Mhm.
Before the U.S. Championships,
Mhm.
USATF said, if you're a film crew and you're not credentialed, you're not coming into the meet. Don't film anything. Don't even try. And
Mhm.
it really cleaned stuff up. But it's very interesting to see that one, that she doesn't compete often, which I think really is a decision by Bobby Kersey, her coach. He's done the same thing with the Thing Moo this year.
Yeah.
Um, it seems to me the bigger picture, and I
Mm.
talked to someone who knows Bobby very well, and he said, "Look, all Bobby cares about is taking care of his athletes." He said, "You guys may think it's about money." He said, "But he's got to look at her career, both their careers,
Mhm.
the money they will make from world records if they set them,
Mhm.
and if competing in back-to-back world championships and almost back-to-back Olympics,
Mhm.
what's that going to do to her career?
Mhm.
And you look at a thing, and I said this morning, that Bobby told me in February that a thing. Well, this is the way Bobby did it with me. I'm on the phone with him, and he goes, "Okay, I know you got a question for me." I said, "What question?" He goes, "Ask it." And I said, "What question?" He goes, "Ask it." I said, "Oh, world record." He goes, "Of course she's going to break the world record." He
Mhm.
said, "But not now." He said, "It's going to take her time. She needs
Mhm.
more experience. She needs more training." I
Mhm.
said, "World record for the 800?" He goes, "Yeah." I
Mhm.
said, then he goes, "But I think her best event may be the 1500." And I'm going, wow. At
Mhm.
that time, she'd run like a 4:15,
Mhm. Mhm.
and so she's run 1/800 this year, a
Mhm.
159,
Mhm.
very tactically sound, did exactly what she needs to do. That 1500 showed, I was totally impressed. I mean, she took what, 11, 12 seconds off her PB, and she battled with Nikki. Give her a few more races and she'll make Nikki work for it, even a little more, which I think Nikki Hiltz is capable of. I mean,
Mhm.
Nikki's got some wheels.
Mhm.
So they're
But can
both
I just,
talented athletes. What's
can
up?
I come back on two things there?
Yeah.
I've never met Bobby Kersey, so I am nothing at all to base it on. But I knew Don Harper Nelson and Alison Felix
Yeah.
reasonably well. They always spoke very highly of him, but they ran all over the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Alison ran hundred. I've seen Alison running hundreds, 200s, 400s, street meets, everything. So you cannot say that it's Bobby's style that the athletes don't run. So something has changed, and I don't
Yes.
know what it is. And the other thing is, yes, I love the stuff that Sydney and Andre have done on their YouTube channel. But is it a kind of, we want to control the output
Yeah.
rather than saying, okay, we will do normal interviews?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a good point, and that's what I believe is going on.
Mm.
The difference is, like with a guy like Noah Lyles. Noah does every interview that's put up in front of him.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
and then he also, he brought a film crew, and he actually filmed me doing an interview with him back in March, or back in February, which was a lot of fun. And I just think that there's a happy medium. Our ability to do interviews and tell the stories is really key. And I just don't think they think it. It reminds me of the way Brad Hunt managed Dan O'Brien and Michael Johnson a bit. Now, Michael would do interviews with me pretty much because his brother was okay with me and Brad was okay with me. They knew I would talk track. So Michael's always been very, very good. But there was this bit with several groups of elite athletes, a bit of disdain for the media.
Mm.
And I don't, maybe I'm misinterpreting it.
Mm.
What's your thoughts?
Well, I was just thinking of Jakob Ingebrigtsen, who is as big as anyone in our sport.
Yeah.
And I remember at Zurich, I think it was 18 months ago, I was waiting to speak to him. A Norwegian was in front of me, and the Norwegian talked to him for 15 minutes in the mix zone. There were
Yeah.
two more people before my turn. But I knew that when Jakob came to me, he would speak to me as if nobody had ever asked him that question before.
Yeah.
And he would give me as long as I wanted.
Yeah.
And what's the difference? I mean, he's just as famous as some of the other athletes
I
who
agree.
are very reluctant to do interviews.
No,
Um,
Jakob did that with me, and so did his brother in Dusseldorf in 19. Just right after the races, just hung out with them. And I sat down with Gert, his dad, up in the bar, and Gert was doing his regular job work at 11 o'clock at night. And then Philip came by, and Gert was upset that Philip was still up and wanted to make sure that he had hydrated. It made him get another, pint or liter of water. And, it just, you're watching those things. But yeah, it's, do you think it is something particular with American athletes as this is
Well,
going on right now?
not speaking about any one athlete in particular,
Yeah.
a number of American athletes have recently had amazing contracts with manufacturers.
Yes.
And it seems as if those athletes are see themselves in a different category, see themselves as not needing to promote themselves, almost not
Yeah.
needing to run as much as other athletes.
Yeah.
And so in that sense, yes.
Okay.
Because I mean, if you take an athlete like Laura Muir, who
Yeah.
has won medals at all 6 championships that she can go in, but she's not a millionaire.
Yeah.
She's not made vast sums out of the sport,
Mhm.
and if I wanted to have an interview with her next month, I would be able to get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to me, that is fairly typical of British athletes.
Yeah.
That British athletics makes them available, and actually, if you go to events the way I do, the athlete gets to know you, trust you, and is
Yeah.
happy to speak to you.
Yeah. No, it's a big deal. I mean, I know that,
Mm,
up until the pandemic, I
mm,
was hitting 8 to 12 meets a year in Europe.
mm,
And yeah, the athletes were always welcoming. I remember we would ask questions at the Veltklasse at the presser. It was pretty much you and me asking questions most of the time.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm disappointed about it. There has been several very large contracts in the U.S. recently. There have been some changes. There's lots of changes going on. Nike is doing a much smaller group, perhaps the term is targeted group of athletes now at their high level. Hoka, Brooks, Adidas, Asics, Puma. Puma's picking up a lot of athletes. The
Mm,
frustrating thing for me with Puma is that they're also putting on events, and most of the time we have no idea what's going on at those events. When I request photos, I don't get anything. I don't even get a response. And I'm just kind of like going, how do you spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on television, a meet, and stuff like that? And you really don't tell people that it's on TV and you don't promote it. Those are the things, Stuart, that
mm,
boggle my mind. And
mm, yeah.
it's such a simple process because we're
Mm,
putting stuff up on a daily basis. So,
yeah.
when someone sends me a press release that says, Larry, here's our meet, here's our time, here's how we do the TV. If I can't get a story about it, at least I get it up on social media and we put it out in front of our minions. And but when people don't do it, the American Track League has been like that. It's a wonderful potential, and they're really building nice things. Paul Doyle has done a wonderful job in bringing in athletes and getting a sponsor, and I appreciate that. I would love to see him promote it more, give us an opportunity to
Yeah.
to build on it. And it's just because what I'll hear about the athletes
Mm,
later.
mm,
A week later, I'll hear something,
yeah.
and it gets a bit frustrating. You
But
know.
look, in case I sound in any way anti-American, let me just shout out two names:
Okay.
Ryan Crouser and Fred Curley.
Yes.
Both very successful, but
Yes.
both, it seems to me, always happy to take
Yeah.
the time to talk.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Ryan, at the LA Grand Prix, after his world record, Ryan came over and talked to us 3 times.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
Fred in Doha, I went up to Fred, introduced myself,
Hmm.
and Fred's a little quieter, but he
Hmm.
gave me a great interview. And
Hmm.
I told him how awesome he was doing the interviews, and he seemed relaxed. And he told me he was really trying, and he thanked me for talking to him because I tried to talk to him. And then I got to see Dina Asher Smith, and Dina's always lovely.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I think I told you this, but sometimes I have senior moments. When I talked to Dina, I mentioned how I'd seen her on the cover of British Vogue, and she had been doing some fashion stuff. And I asked her, I said, do you want to get into the fashion business? And she goes, oh, no. She goes, I just like being around creative people. She goes, she was really fat. And it was really interesting to hear her talk about it, you know. And Fred's comment was, why are you so good at the 100, 200, and 400? And he said what he said to you years ago. I love to compete. I compete at everything, you know. He goes, I've won at 13 kids. We compete at everything, you know. So it makes a ton of sense, you know.
Also, I mean, he told me that he thinks there are any number of people who could run 400, 200, 100, you know, under 10 seconds, under 20 seconds, under, what is it, 43 seconds.
Yeah.
But they're scared to try. That's what he said to me.
Let's talk about the 400 for a minute. Wade Vanderkerk and Stephen Gardner. What's your thoughts?
Why do you always ask me such simple questions? I have a lot of time for both athletes.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that Stephen is quite a shy individual, but I've talked to him a couple of times. Wade, again, I had some really good conversation with him in Oslo, and he did a really interesting thing. He said, you know, I've always been the type of person that if coach gives me a physical challenge, I will give it all I've got. But the mental challenge of coming back from a serious injury is like nothing I've ever experienced before.
Yeah.
It's just so much more difficult than a physical challenge. Just worrying whether your body will actually be able to do what it could do before, whether you're putting too much pressure on the body, and whether it, you know, you'll just get injured again because it's happened once, you know, all this kind of stuff. And I would say that I'm not a betting man, but if I were, I would put money on Wade to win the Olympics next year.
Yeah.
Whether he's ready to win the World Championship would be the only question I have. Yeah. You know, whether he's got enough tough races behind him. But then Stephen has had a few injuries too. I think that's the race between those two is going to be one of the highlights of Budapest.
I think so too. Where are you at right now in the women's 100? How do you put that race together?
I would just love to know how fit Shelly Ann is. I mean, to run once and to run 1082 is pretty impressive. You know, I can tell you people who've run 100 times never run 1082.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, I'm privileged to know Shelly, and after Tokyo, I said to Shelly, you know, Veronica did 5 Olympics. And she laughed in my face and said, no way, no way. And will she be in Paris? Without a doubt.
Oh, yeah.
I think if there's at all in her mind the thought that something that she's going to do in Budapest might damage her chances in Paris, she would happily sacrifice Budapest.
Yeah.
Because I know she feels a disappointment that she didn't win in Rio when she was carrying an injury.
Yeah.
And that she didn't win in Tokyo when she just didn't produce the best race of the year in the Olympic final, which is very unlike her.
Yeah.
That just on that day, she did not produce the best race that she's capable of. And, you know, having got down to 10.6, she believes she can run a 10.5. So I think she's the one to beat, but perhaps she's not quite at 100%. I mean, Sha'Carri is an awesome talent, but she has yet to prove it on the biggest stage.
That's what I wonder. I look at an athlete like Marie-Josée Tallou.
Oh, yes.
I wonder if Marie-Josée, if this is the moment for a woman sprinter from the African continent.
Yeah. I personally would love to see her do that because, again, I'm privileged to know her. I remember the first time I did an interview with her, we went into the room and she said to me, "Can we do it in French?"
Yeah.
But I was okay. I do speak French. But so, I mean, I find at times I have a bit of fun with her. So
Yeah.
I said to her this week, how come you're getting faster and faster as you get older? And she just said, I'm like fine wine, better with age.
I like that. Yeah, that's got to show up in an article. No,
Yeah, it has. It has, yeah.
she is quite talented. She
Hmm.
also runs the entire race.
Yeah.
She
Hmm.
competes really, really
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be very interesting to see how she and Shakari and Shelly Ann do in the rounds. On the men's side, I just saw a video with crazy long jumper Marcel Jacobs, the Olympic champion,
I
European
saw that. Yeah.
champion, and he looked really good. What do you think the men's? What are we going to see in the men's 100?
The problem with Marcel is it's a long time since he has competed flat out in consecutive meets.
Yeah, yeah,
And you just wonder about his real fitness.
yeah.
Um, if you want to throw out one name, it's hard not to say Noah Lyles.
Oh yeah. No, I look at Noah and I think that I think that Noah and his coach Lance Brauman have been looking at this race for 3 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think they learned from
Mm-hmm.
what happened in Tokyo. Noah did not like what happened there. He knew he was better last year.
Yeah.
I put an interview up of him that I did in March where all we talked about was Tokyo and Eugene. And
Mm.
it was very interesting to see how he saw both of them, but also what he's thinking of this year. I think he can win the 100. I think that he will break the world record in the 200.
Yeah.
But I also think you're going to see kids like Letsile Tobogo and
Mm-hmm.
Kenny Bednarik
Mm-hmm.
and Arian Knighton
Yeah.
light it up. Zarnell, I put as my spoiler for the 100.
Well,
And
you see, I was going to say that with not in an arrogant way at all, Zarnell thinks he can beat Noah Lyles.
oh yeah, yeah.
And he thinks this because of how hard he has worked over the last years.
Mm-hmm.
And uh, the reason he hasn't done it up till now is because he has not delivered in a big race. You know, he's had a couple of false starts when
Yeah.
he was in big races, finals, semi-finals, and so on. And I think that to go out and beat Linford Christie and John Regis's records that have stood for 30 years,
Mm-hmm.
to do that in a sort of 2 week period is quite something.
Yeah.
Um, but again, he's got to deliver on the big stage, which so far he has struggled to do.
Yeah.
But I think it's. I mean, you have to say that Lyles is the favourite, but I think that any of those people that we've mentioned are in with a real shot.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, if we knew that Lyles was going to win, we wouldn't need to go to Budapest. That's the beauty of sport.
That is true, my friend. That's the buildup. Let's talk about an event that's near and dear to your heart, the women's pole vault. Anybody challenge Katie Moon? You think Wilma Murta from Finland?
I think it's Katie's to lose.
Okay.
And the confidence that she will have going into it as world and Olympic champion is high. I mean, I think that if Katie isn't, I think if Katie jumps 490, nobody will beat her. But if she doesn't, if it's just not her best day, there are people like Murta and two or three others, who can challenge. I'd love to see Sandy Morris having a strong competition. Holly Bradshaw will be there, but I think even she would say she's not really a contender because of the horrendous year and a bit that she's had. From her pole snapping in warm up in Oregon in July last year, injuring her back. And then she's picked up other injuries since that, which are probably as a result of, putting too much pressure on other parts of the body because you're carrying an injury.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, she has battled to to get enough ranking points to get an invitation for the World Championship.
Hmm.
For the first time in living memory, she's not British champion.
Yeah, yeah.
But one of the things, again, just going back to where we started, Holly will speak to anybody, anytime,
Yeah.
even if she's had the worst competition of the season, she'll stand and tell you about it. And I respect that enormously.
Yeah, I agree, my friend. I agree. Sandy Morris put a note up today on social media that she's been having good days and bad days. She said it's really hard on her, some of the comments that people make about her. And she said, but she's going to Budapest and she wants to do the best she can. Been seeing pictures of Joe Kovacs throwing the shot over in Hungary and enjoying some Hungarian food. Apparently, his family is Hungarian, like mine, and he's been over there for a little bit with his twins and his lovely wife, who's his coach. So,
Yeah.
I think it's going to be hard to battle Ryan Krauser. Your thoughts there?
Well, I can tell you the secret of that coaching relationship.
Yeah.
Because Joe said to me, I do what my wife says. It makes my life easier.
That is a very smart man. A very smart man. Many of us could learn from that,
I told him that I had written that for AW and they'd used it the headline, and he said, I'll tell my wife, she'll love it. I can't see anyone beating Krauser.
Yeah, yeah. Talk to me about British relay chances.
Well, interestingly, AW has just predicted that we will get 6 medals in Budapest. That 2 relay and 4 individual medals.
That's pretty darn good for you guys.
Well, that's about the expectation. And that we will get, they think, the silver medal in the women's sprint and the bronze in the men's sprint.
Ooh. What are they picking? Dina and Zarnell for a medal?
For
a medal?
Well, the 4 that they have gone for is Josh Kerr,
okay,
KJT,
yep,
Zarnell,
yep,
and Keeley.
Wow, no Laura.
No, but and all 4 of those they put down as bronze, which I think is no Laura, no Dina. That's their prediction.
Wow. Well, that'll piss Dina off a little bit.
I think it'll not please a lot of people.
Well, yeah. And Laura, I'm shocked. Well, yeah, the women's 1500 is going to be brutal, but I think the women's 5000 is going to be even more brutal.
Yeah.
I
think to some extent, the women's 15, you might say Kipiegan's going to win it.
Yeah.
But to some extent. And you could say that she could win it several different ways.
Yeah.
And your question could be, I was in the stadium for her 3 world records this year. And it's quite interesting talking to other athletes in the race is how do you actually decide how fast to run in a race like that when, being realistic, you know that Kipiegan is going to win it? Do you try to go with her and then risk dying? Do you just run at your own pace? Yeah. And you see, in the 1500, Laura initially tried to go with her and then did drop back. Whereas in the mile in Monaco, Laura just ignored her.
Yeah.
Ran her own race and ran a British record. I suppose, but I don't know. I mean, there are other East Africans, and Dare one said there's always questions in the back of one's mind.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
what do you think about Gemma Riki?
well, Gemma, I thought I spoke to her in Lausanne,
Okay.
and she ran a good time, and she said it's very sensible things. That's a good time for this time in the season. I mean, I don't want to be doing my best at a Diamond League a month or two before the World Championship.
Yeah.
Um, she did very well in London, Diamond League, winning that race. In the British Championship, all she had to do was cruise in second place, but she tried to race Keeley. She
Yeah.
pushed Keeley. So
Yeah.
I think that Gemma is in a good place. I mean, she made an interesting. She's now with John Big,
Okay.
who is. I mean, I don't mean this to disparage him, but he's the husband of Sally Gunnell,
Oh, okay.
as
Yeah.
as well as being an excellent coach. And he's got people like Elliot Giles and Daniel Rowden, for example.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I think that and Gemma said to me, I'm learning a lot from John about the event and about myself.
Hmm.
And yeah, I mean, to be fair to Gemma Riki and leaving the coach situation out of it, she came fourth in Tokyo and was a medalist all the way until Raven Rogers produced that amazing finish.
Yeah.
And then she got ill and she competed the rest of 2021. She competed 2022, but most of the time she was struggling with illness, which meant that she was suffering a bit of fatigue and so on. And she looks to have shaken that off, and she looks to be in good form. I mean, I think without any question, she will get to the final, and she'll give a good account of herself. Quite what that will look like in terms of result
Yeah.
is hard to say because there's people like Atting, if she's there, Mary Mora, who has the ability to run all sorts of different races. So that's a pretty competitive. But, I think one of the themes of our discussion tonight is that winning global championship medals is difficult.
Yes. I've been spouting off on that on my little daily chats, and one of the things I mentioned that the other day, Austria has 8 athletes competing in the world champs, and that's the record for them. That's the biggest team they've ever had. The U.S. has 164. Spain and France, I think, are next, and Italy is in there.
Yeah.
Team Great Britain is 55.
Mhm.
They've had bigger teams. They had about 80 in Eugene,
Yes.
but they have 55 here, which is a pretty substantial team, very substantial team.
Mm.
Germans have in the 30s. Most of the other countries in Europe have that as well. Hungary has 63. They're the home country,
Mm.
and they're hoping to get a medal or two, which
Yeah.
is, it's going to be tough
Mm.
because I think I'm trying to think which, event is the weakest. U.S. doesn't have a chance in anything of medaling in the race walks, but the race walks are brutal. I
Yeah.
mean, the quality of competition there
Yeah.
last year was just
Mm.
incredible, and I don't see it being any different. In the marathon, I mean, I'm doing a piece on Zach Penning today, an American
Mm.
who's run 2:09:28 his second marathon, 27:51 for the 10. Pretty good. When he ran his first marathon, he ran 2:15:04, faster than Frank Shorter, 2-time Olympian. But this is a different era. You can't
Yeah.
even compare it. But it's interesting to see athletes like that. We had an athlete like Meb Keflezighi years ago, who was a pretty good big city marathoner. He won Boston, did very well in New York, and then he wins an Olympic medal in in Athens. And in 2012, he's fourth in London, which I think is probably one of his best performances. So
Yeah.
the championship marathon, world champ marathons are terribly difficult, and you don't know who's going to show up, and you kind of know who's going to show up, but what kind of shape are they in?
Yeah.
What is your take on the women's long jump? You've got Malaika Mihambo out.
Yeah.
Jasmine Sawyer's 7-meter woman is there. You have Tara Woodall Davis, who's done a win age in 7:11.
Mm-hmm.
You've got Kashinda Burks, who is gone 7:06, I think. She's coached by Brittany Reese.
Yes.
You've got our friend from Serbia.
Letter, yes.
Yes, and
Yeah.
she's always tough. And then you've got, I'm just trying to think who else we've got in there.
Fiona May's daughter.
Yes. Wow.
I can't remember how to pronounce her name.
Is it Lara Piano?
No,
Isana?
Picture or something like that. But anyway, yeah. I mean, I think it's quite wide open. I mean, Jasmine did well in the British trials, but she's not performed particularly well outdoor this year, having done the 7 meters in Istanbul. But I just think the thing about the long jump is you just need to produce one jump.
Yeah, yeah.
And any of those you've mentioned are capable of doing that one jump.
Yeah. We talked about the men's triple jump and how we miss Christian Taylor and our other friends, Will Clay, who seem to only compete well when both of them are competing. Pedro Pedrosa is rounding into form, but it looks like Fabrice Hughes from Burkina Faso.
Swango, yes.
Yeah, could be the toughest one out there.
I mean, I remember having conversations with Christian about how close he thought he could get to Jonathan Edwards' 18:29. And yet, probably anybody who jumps 17:90 will be in the medals. I mean, it's strange how that event has not moved on. But I mean, we were saying the same 5 years ago about the 400 hurtles.
Yeah.
About how it had not moved forward from the days of Edwin Moses. And then suddenly, Karsten and one or two others started running silly times.
Yeah, you're right.
So it may well be that suddenly a triple jumper will appear and will jump 18:35.
Yeah.
Jonathan is very funny about this because Jonathan once said to me, everyone says, "Oh, I want my world record to be broken." Well, I don't. I want my world record to stay all my life.
Yeah. Now, is Jonathan doing commentary for BBC anymore?
No. The last time I saw him was in Zurich last year when he was presiding over the presser, and he told me that he was effectively retired.
Oh, wow.
He just, I think he made for someone in triple jump, he made a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I just think he has just felt he could retire and chose to do so.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he is. He was always a lot of fun. I think I enjoyed talking. I love the picture of him with Karsten Warholm from 2017.
Yes.
And did.
Yes.
It makes me smile each time. And Jonathan is enjoying it because he knows he is with a character. And Karsten Warholm is most definitely a character. So I think with that, my friend, we will end our Athletics Chat 103. I will see you in 3 days in Budapest.
Yes.
And we'll have to figure a way to be charming from there and
Mm.
challenge Michael to help us figure out how to do this.
Yeah.
This is Athletics Chat with Stuart and Larry.
Yeah.
And some days, I should have had more caffeine today, Stuart. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stuart is across the pond in lovely old England. I'm on the other side of the pond in rainy Wisconsin. It's kind of clearing up, but we're going to both be in humid Budapest.
Yep.
We're hoping the rain stays away because they've had a bit of it.
Mm.
And we'll be there from the 17th
Yes.
till the 29th and then off to Zurich.
Yes.
Stuart, that's a long time for us to see each other every day. I hope
Yeah.
your prayer life is good.
I'll just get on to World Athletics and say, can you make sure I'm not sitting anywhere near Larry?
I think a few people are doing that,
See you there. See you there.
All right, my friend. Have a good evening.
Thank
Talk
you.
to you soon. Bye now.
Bye.
Hey, sports fans, Larry Eder here. It is Athletics Chat 103, our third season, our third episode. Can you believe it? So much fun in 40 minutes. We've solved many of the world's problems. They should just put us on CNN or BBC. But what did we talk about today? We talked about Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone, how things move, what's going to happen with them. We talked about how they don't race much. But other athletes that Bobby Kersey had, Allison Felix raced all over the place. I would see her in Doha every year, So perhaps part of the issue is some of the athletes want to control all their messaging. And that's possible in this modern media. But I think their stories don't get told as well. But only they're going to have to figure it out. The case that Stuart and I brought up was our friend Noah Lyles, who does interviews upon interviews, does his own podcast, is doing a program called Untitled starting on Peacock, I think on the 19th, or on the 18th, and that should go over quite well. There's some people who seem to get the media. I just posted an interview with Cindy Sember. Fantastic. Cindy is boom, boom, boom. Great question. She explains the 100 hurdles. I think you really like it. Did a In the Mix Zone with Talia Brooks, the number 2 heptathlete in the U.S., who's doing quite well and who's made the team for Budapest. A quick interview with her. And we'll be posting several other interviews. We've had Noah Lyles up. We've had, who else did we get up there? Candace Hill. We've got a bunch to go. Rai Benjamin will be coming up. We've had Sam Kendricks and Mondo Duplantis. But there's a lot of athletes out there who will go out of their way to talk to the media. Some athletes don't feel comfortable with that, and that is unfortunate. We talked about the women's 100 and the men's 100. Shelly-Ann Fraser-Price. This could be numero 6. She can win this world championships. Can she do it? She's got Sha'Carri Richardson. She's got Marie-José Talou. The fields are terribly tough there. On the men's side, you've got Fred Curley, you've got Marcel Jacobs, you've got Noah Lyles. You've got Zarnell Hughes as a spoiler. It's going to be really interesting. I can't pick them, and that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to post some stuff up tonight, and someone's going to say, Larry, get off the crack pipe, but that's what we do. That's how we keep it fun. So I'm going to go event by event, post stuff up, and see what you guys think about it, okay? But this is Athletics Chat 103. We just finished it up. We will continue doing this because people seem to really enjoy it. And we will see you in Budapest in less than 72 hours. Talk to you soon.